This is 17 News with continuing coronavirus coverage.
Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us. I'm Nicole Kitsky. Governor Gavin Newsom is streaming live every day at noon to give an update on the coronavirus crisis in our state. Today, he is providing an update on the state's response to the coronavirus, and he will be going live soon, so we will continue to follow that. But let's keep going with our news until he comes on. All right, we have him now. Let's take you over to him live. This is Governor Gavin Newsom once again, and he's providing an update on the state's response to the coronavirus. Let's take a listen in.
A decade plus to figure out what she was ultimately saying. But she was focused on, more than anything else, our capacity to be resilient and to meet challenges head on. Our capacity as human beings to refocus our energies, our sense of purpose, and a sense of optimism and faith that we'll get through times challenging, times like today, difficult moments that all of us are working through to reconcile the world we're living in, to reconcile the need to pay our rent, our mortgage, to understand whether or not we could educate our kids at home with all of the other burdens and challenges that we face within the household, and where we're going as a state and as a nation. The old adage, we're nothing but a mirror of our consistent thoughts. Whatever we tend to focus on, we find more of. And if you're like me, you're focused on the nightly news, 24/7 cycle, 7 days a week. There's a lot of anxiety running through those broadcasts, a lot of fear that is induced, focusing on what this nation and the world is doing to meet this pandemic head on. That stress is manifest. That stress is real. And all of us work through that stress differently. No one can moralize how some people deal with it versus others. Some people are coping quite well. Others are struggling, understandably. Struggling because they lost their job and they don't have a paycheck. Struggling because their kids aren't at school. Struggling in ways where they're having a hard time sleeping, where they're a little bit shorter, a little more irritable, and they're prone to doing things that aren't healthy. They may be drinking more than they should. I don't just mean adult beverages, high sugar drinks. They may not be taking time to breathe. They may not even be taking time to reflect on their own health and the need to exercise, to hydrate, and to focus on reaching out and embracing someone else, or calling for help, calling a friend and saying, you know what, can I just talk? We recognize, we all, I think, recognize the nature of this moment. And I just want folks to know that staying at home doesn't mean you're alone. That as a state, we are here to do what we can to support you and to be there at a time of need. I've tasked the Surgeon General of the state of California, Dr. Nadine Harris-Burke, to put together a strategy and a protocol to help support you and to support caregivers that need the peer-to-peer support, a little psychological first aid themselves to get through the day and to continue to thrive, not just survive in terms of the workload as they're taking care of people all throughout the state of California. I've asked her to consider not only the physical health needs of Californians in the context of addressing the issues of this virus, but the brain health needs, the mental health. After all, the brain is part of the body, and there's nothing to be ashamed by recognizing your own limitations in terms of the stress and the angst that you may feel. In fact, there's probably no one stronger than when he or she recognizes those stress points. And so we are putting out guidelines. We're putting out guidance not only to our health plans in the state of California, both on the private side and on the public side, our Medi-Cal system, but we're also putting a playbook together for you, a checklist as adults, as caregivers, but also a checklist for our children, because everything I just said is translated very differently into our children. Our children aren't able to communicate words like this, boy, I'm completely stressed out. Not a young child. Maybe a teenager, but not a young child. And they manifest stress very differently. They have a tummy ache. They may not be sleeping as well. They may be particularly irritable, sort of jumping back and forth. Well, I explained my daughter a few weeks ago as she threw her bed over because she was so upset when I told her it's likely she wasn't going to go back to school and see her friends this school year. Everybody manifests this differently, and our children are most vulnerable because they're not able to communicate as effectively as many of the adults and caregivers. So we have a playbook for them as well, a checklist for our children as well. And we have resources. We have on our covid19.ca.gov website, covid19.ca.gov website, we have 16 hotlines that we have made available, including text chat lines where people can address their particular needs as it relates to domestic violence, intimate partner battering. We're seeing increasing in times of stress and the need to get help. You can call that DV hotline. Elder abuse. We obviously have to take care of our seniors. We have a hotline for that. Child abuse. We have a hotline for that. Teens feeling deep emotional stress that are feeling in crisis. We have a teen crisis hotline. All of these things available in many, many languages, up to 170 languages in some instances. LGBTQ and their unique challenges. Across the spectrum, supports, substance abuse, alcohol abuse, all of those hotlines, all of those resource sites are available on covid19.ca.gov to help support you during these times of needs. There's also concern, and I'll ask the doctor to come up in a second, around secondary health effects. We talk about your physical health as it relates to making sure we stay at home, we practice physical distancing, we continue to do what we must in terms of our personal hygiene, washing our hands, and the like. But it's also true that stress hormones create the kind of anxiety that induces other secondary effects. It impacts your blood pressure. It impacts your heart and can increase the likelihood of a stroke. It can impact your diabetes. It can certainly impact your sense of well-being and depression and the like. And so the secondary health impacts are a big part of what we're also looking to respond to. And that's, again, the purpose of the guidance we're putting out today and the incredible work that our Surgeon General has been doing to integrate the behavioral and mental health side of the world and the substance abuse side of the world. She's been working for many, many weeks to put together the guidance that we're putting out today and to meet these challenges head on and to be there and extend a hand for you at this time of great stress and need. And so I shouldn't belabor this. Let me just ask her to come on up. And your Surgeon General, we're proud as a state of California to have our own Surgeon General, but her expertise has been and continues to be trauma-informed care, a world expert in this space, and she's bringing that expertise to help address this moment so all of us can work through that fear and anxiety as we all are capable of doing with resiliency and the capacity to adapt to the moment as long as we have the support to get through this moment. With that, Dr. Burke-Harris.
Thank you, Governor. The actions we're all taking to slow the spread of coronavirus, physical distancing, hand washing, wearing masks, and proper disinfecting are critically necessary and remain the top priority. But while we keep our physical distance, our social supports to maintain emotional and spiritual connection are more important than ever for our physical and mental health. The health impacts of coronavirus go beyond infection and COVID disease. It is important to recognize that stress related to the pandemic that many are feeling right now, compounded by the economic distress due to lost wages, employment, and financial assets, plus school closures and sustained physical distancing, can trigger the biological stress response, which also has an impact on our health and well-being. During times of heightened stress, our bodies make more stress hormones, including adrenaline and cortisol, and these can affect our health, our behaviors, and our emotions. Overactivity of the stress response can be associated with a variety of symptoms, some of which are familiar and others that are less well known. Familiar symptoms include changes in sleep patterns or appetite, mood changes such as anxiety, depression, or anger, an increased risk of substance use or dependence, and family violence. However, health conditions such as headache, abdominal pain, and digestive difficulties, increased blood pressure or blood sugar, asthma exacerbations, and increased risk of infection are also associated with an overactive stress response. It's important to know that these changes aren't just in your head, and to begin to identify how stress you physically, emotionally, and behaviorally. Individuals who have a history of trauma or adversity may also be at greater risk. The good news is that there are simple things that you can do every day at home to protect your and your family's health. Safe, stable, and nurturing relationships help to protect our brains and bodies from the harmful effects of stress and adversity. Healthy nutrition, regular exercise, mindfulness like meditation, good sleep hygiene, and staying connected to our social supports and getting mental health care all help to decrease stress hormones and improve our health. We've brought together evidence-based guidance in the Surgeon General's playbook on stress relief during COVID-19 and an additional playbook for caregivers and kids that offers practical tools and tips that you can add to your daily routine. We've also developed guidance for health plans and healthcare providers on addressing stress-related health concerns during this pandemic, including how to implement trauma-informed care and supporting provider resilience. That information is available at acesaware.org. If you are concerned about the effects of stress on your health, call your doctor or your mental health professional. And if you need help finding resources, visit the Emotional Support and Wellbeing homepage at covid19.ca.gov. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. And the Surgeon General will be available for questions in a moment as well. I'll just remind everything, we are bigger than anything we face. And so I know the fear and anxiety we all have, but let us have faith. Faith conquers all. And know that this will pass. It will pass. And in that light and in that spirit, let me give you an update on where we are in terms of the total number of positive cases in this state. And let me give you a sense of optimism in terms of the curve in California bending. It is bending, but it's also stretching. And I want to make that point and that distinction in a moment. But let me first just give you the updated numbers. 15,865 individuals are currently tested positive for COVID-19. That represents a 10.7% increase over yesterday. Hospitalizations in the state of California and ICU beds, again, those are the numbers I look at first thing every morning. The hospitalization numbers went up to 2,611 yesterday. That's about a 4.1% increase from the previous day. ICUs went up to 1,108. That was about a 2.1% increase over the course of the last 24 hours. 2.1% will take. Of course, too many. We want to see that number go down, not up. But these are not the double-digit increases we're seeing in hospitalization rates or ICU rates that we saw even a week or so ago. That's not to suggest, by any stretch of the imagination, that we'll continue to see these declines. It's to only reinforce the importance of maintaining physical distancing and continuing our stay-at-home policy that has helped bend the curve in the state of California. But that curve continues to rise, just not at the slope that originally was projected without the kind of interventions, these non-pharmaceutical interventions like physical distancing have provided for. So let us continue in that stead.
You just heard the latest from Governor Gavin Newsom talking about the response to the COVID-19 pandemic here in California. Now, he's talking today a lot about stress and the impact stress is having on us. They also made a comment about the impact that stress has on our health and how that can really hurt us. And at this time, we need to keep ourselves healthy. He is also saying how we need to protect children and elderly from abuse. And you can do all of that and find help to any of these problems going on right now at covid.ca.gov. That is a website, and they provide lots of helpful tips for you, especially during this time regarding a lot of stress and kind of how we can take that and use it to our advantage. And you can continue watching Governor Newsom's whole live stream on our Facebook page as well. Well, we're tracking breaking news right now. Sheriff Donnie Youngblood says 10 employees and 2 inmates at the Lerdo jail have tested positive for COVID-19. His comments came in a new Facebook video less than an hour ago. No one has been hospitalized for the virus. The inmates are isolated at this time. Youngblood says some of the employees have already recovered and are now back to work. He says the Judicial Council is requiring certain low-level misdemeanor and felony pretrial inmates to be released without bail. Well, this afternoon, we have 1 new coronavirus case reported in Kern County. That brings the total to 253 people who have tested positive for COVID-19, including 6 non-residents. More than 3,000 people have tested negative, and nearly 2,000 tests are still pending, and 2 residents have died. Now let's take a look at how these cases break down by age. 127, which means more than half of the positive tests, are people between the ages of 18 and 49. 4 are 17 and under, 78 are 50 and 64, and 38 are between the ages of 65 and older. Well, here's a look at where these cases fall within the county. 42 in the Valley, 107 in West Bakersfield, 84 in East Bakersfield, 8 in the mountain areas, and 6 in the desert areas. Kern Public Health says the COVID Resource Center received more than 400 calls yesterday alone. If you have any questions, you can call them 7 days a week at 321-3000. Well, stay with us. We're back right after the break. It's another gorgeous day out there, but rain may be in our forecast. Let's send things over to Kevin Charette so he can give us a look at what's happening outdoors. Kevin?
Well, Nicole, it's been a fairly nice morning now into the early part of the afternoon, but the clouds are increasing. Let's take a look at the current conditions right now around Kern County and see what we've got going on. I've seen the clouds increasing on our Skycam network, and right now we've got 59 degrees out in Arvin, and you can see some clouds out that way. And then Wasco, we've got partly cloudy skies and 55, and up in the mountains, Golden Hills, some clouds on the increase, and currently still a little cool in the 40s, and that's where we're going to keep you most of the day. We've got 56 in Delano at this time, 58 in Taft, and then for the mountains, 30s and 40s. The cool spot, Frazier Park at 39, 46 in Tehachapi, 50 for Lake Isabella. The sun has helped to warm places up a little bit up in the mountains. And you can see, we talked this morning how those clouds and the rain would increase from the south and the east, and that's exactly what will progress here throughout the afternoon. So we've enjoyed a little bit of sunshine, but that is all going to come to an end. You can see the rotation there. That is our cutoff low that we've been talking about. And when we say cutoff low, what that means is this low is disconnected from the jet stream. So it kind of has a mind of its own. It's not being driven by the jet stream. It's being driven by itself. And so it is south, and it will wrap that moisture around into Southern California. And then by later on this afternoon and into the evening, that's when the moisture will roll on in for us. That's today. Then it swings to the south and then to the east by Thursday. And in this time period, we will continue to see the rain. So here's a look at our futurecast model, put it into motion. You can see the rotation, and we keep the chance of showers in there and higher elevation snow in place until late Thursday, possibly even into Friday morning. We have a winter storm warning above 5,000 feet for the Kern County mountains through 11 p.m. tomorrow. Now we're getting great rain totals, 0.69 in the gauge now, so we surpassed 2019, 18, and 17, and also 2015. So we're in contention with that 2016 number, which was 0.97. And if all plays out right, by the time the system is gone, I think we will be above that. So here's a look at the weather headlines. Wet weather in place for at least Thursday. 6 to 12 inches of snow, possibly above 5,000 feet. So Pine Mountain Club, Cuddy Valley, and the higher elevations of Bear Valley Springs could see some snowfall. And additional rain amounts as we head into tonight and into tomorrow, between 1/2 and 1 inch for the valley, mountains, and also into the desert, between 1/4 and 1/2. So here's a look at the forecast today. Still a chance of showers out there this afternoon. Slight chance of a thunderstorm. 64 in Bakersfield, 65 in Delano, 59 in Taft. For the mountains and the Kern River Valley, a chance of showers. Isolated thunderstorm can't be ruled out. We've got an easterly wind 25 to 35, 47 in Frazier Park, 49 Tehachapi, 50s into the Kern River Valley, and then for the desert, 55 in Mojave. So this all plays out through Thursday. Then we start the drying out period for the weekend. We warm things up by Sunday. Look at that. Easter Sunday, 78 degrees. For the mountains, also clearing you out this weekend, as you can see here. Sunday, a high of 63. And then for the Kern River Valley, we'll dry things out Friday, and your Easter Sunday right at 73. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. Well, as we continue to social distance and learn more about the coronavirus, it is important to remember that we need to have conversations with children about what is happening. Jessica Lynn Burzlaff, a marriage and family therapist, has more on what you can do to talk to your kids about this uncertain time.
I think that's a very good thing to keep in mind, is that if this is hard for adults to wrap their brains around, imagine how hard it might be for a 5-year-old who's suddenly yanked out of school and isn't allowed to see, his or her grandparents or friends anymore. So, but the first thing is talk to them. Don't act like, I think our instinct as parents is to protect our children. And I think we think in our head that, if we just pretend like everything's fine, the kids won't notice and it'll be no big deal. But that's just not true. Kids are really sensitive and they pick up on a lot of things, and they're going to hear things. Even my 5-year-old knew what coronavirus was, in February. And so they know, they hear, but they don't have the background to really understand or put it in context. So my advice is ask your kids, hey, how are you feeling? What do you think about all of this? Do you have any worries? Do you have any questions? And then if they do have questions or worries, listen to them.
Do you hide anything from them?
They're not looking to us to be the expert in coronavirus or COVID-19, but they are looking to us to understand how to react to everything that's going on. So if we are minimizing it and acting like it's no big deal, then they're going to be confused as to why we're staying home and not going to school. But if we act like it's the end of the world, then they're going to, panic and have anxiety. So I think that there has to be a fine balance, but we cannot act like it's not happening.
Should you hide anything from them? I mean, facts are changing day by day. The numbers continue to get worse. What should you hide from them, if anything?
Well, I wouldn't say hide anything, but I would also say I would, instead of telling them information, I would land on asking open-ended questions. So how are you feeling about this? Do you have any questions about what's going on? And then when they do, just answer those questions. And if you don't know the answer, like my son recently said he's really worried about his grandma and his Nana getting sick and dying. And I'm not going to tell him, that's not going to happen. That's, don't worry about that. That's fine. Because I don't know that that's not going to happen. And so what I say is I worry about that too, baby. That's why we stay home. That's why we wash our hands. That's why, when I go out, I go to the grocery store so that for grandma and Nana, so that they don't have to leave the house, and I bring them things. That's why we wear masks. And
right.
So, I don't think that we need to have the answers, but I think we can model for them, how to put this into a context that we don't know, but we can do things to be proactive.
Can you with so many people cooped up inside their home and, in self-isolation, is there anything that you can do to kind of make light of this dark time and do something fun and creative?
Well, and I think that's a really good point, is that our kids are going to remember this time, and what they remember is really on us. Are they going to remember us being stressed and worried and watching the news all the time and talking about it? Or are they going to remember the cool, awesome blanket fort that we made in the living room? Or are they going to remember the really awesome cake that we made from scratch, or that neat poster we made and drove by the hospital that said, "Thank you, doctors"? Or are they going to remember the making masks and sending them to, essential city workers? Or are they going to remember, what are they going to remember? Are they going to remember being a helper and contributing to this time? Or are they going to remember just the fear and anxiety and panic? Like, that is up as parents, that's what we have control over, right? We get to control to some extent how they remember this time in their lives. And I think it's okay to take breaks, from the seriousness of the situation, to have fun and make this we got this extra time,
right,
and it's our choice whether we focus on what we don't have and how scary this is, or whether we focus on, the things that we can make out of this time, like the time we can spend together, the hobbies, the experiences that we can create for our kids.
This is 17 News with continuing coronavirus coverage.